Hey, greetings everyone. Welcome back. This is the ChiroSecure. Let's get your office working better, more efficiently, make you a little more money, if you will. Thank you to ChiroSecure and their efforts to make sure the profession always has the right information. I'm Sam Collins, the coding and billing expert for Chiropractic, the H.J. Ross Company, and for you. Today's program, I want to deal a little bit of how to deal with an insurance company that pays you and then later comes back and says, hey, we shouldn't have paid you. We want it back, or even taken it back. This is a very, very common question. The good news is I won't say it happens a lot, but it's going to happen to every office. And what are our rights? What can we do when an insurance company pays us and then later says, oops, it was wrong. I want to get it back. Now, there's a couple of scenarios here we do have to think about when this happens. Are you in network? Are you out of network? And quite frankly, think of it this way. You bill an insurance. You do all your work to verify the claim or verify the benefits. You send out the claim. They pay it. You think fantastic. Well, let's take it this way. The insurance company you do verification says that they cover 20 chiropractic visits. You think fantastic. And they say all 20 are available. You bill. They pay you 20. 6 months, a year later, they come back and say, oops, we should not have paid you because it turns out the patient had seen a physical therapist. Sometimes these plans have benefits that correspond with other professions. And so now they say, oops, we shouldn't have paid you. Well, is that something you'd have to pay back? Because if you really think about it, whose mistake was that? If they already paid 20 visits and then they paid you 20 more, how would we supposed to know that when they told us it wasn't? Or how about a plan that comes in and says, hey, there's chiropractic benefits, and then later says, oh, it turns out there aren't any. We have rights and responsibilities, but they also do as well. So let's go to the slides. Let's talk about the laws and case laws that affect you. If an insurance requests a refund, what are your rights? What can we do? Well, I think the best way to look at it is take a look at an insurance company that's requested. Here's an example of a federal Blue Cross Blue Shield has paid someone and then later says, uh-oh, we shouldn't have paid it. So take a look. It says, in regards to the request for repayment for the claim, the request made to you was a voluntary overpayment request because you are an in-network provider. You do not have to pay back any overpayment if the overpayment was discovered 365 days or more after the claim was finalized. In other words, after the claim is paid, they have 1 year. So if they don't make this request within 1 year or past the statute of limitation, that's the first place you can say no, because notice it says it's voluntary. The assumption is they're thinking, well, you'll just send it anyway. Excuse me? I mean, let's face it. The policy says something's covered. They later discover it's not. Well, I did my verification. I billed it. Why are they coming to the doctor? Well, they're coming to us because they figure we have the deep pockets. We're also afraid of them. Understand your rights. So notice here, under the federal plan, it says if you're in network and it's more than a year. So do understand there's going to be some rules here with statute of limitations. Just like when you send a claim, you have 1 year, 90 days, whatever to send, they have the same to recoup. Now, let's say this is a plan you are in network with. If you are in network, actually, they could force you to pay it back if it's within the statute of limitations. On the federal side, it's 1 year. Now, let's understand it's not 1 year from the date of service, but 1 year from the date that they paid you or finalized the claim. So in this case, what should this provider do? Absolutely refuse. Why would I voluntarily send it? I wouldn't. If you think of it, if they've paid it wrong, whose issue is that? Was that ours? What did we do to bill it incorrectly? Now, bear in mind, this doesn't mean there's a fraudulent bill or we billed for something we shouldn't have been paid for. It literally is something they realize later, oh, we shouldn't have covered it. So there's case laws to deal with this. Take a look at this letter, and I want you to use these same protocols. Your company is requesting a refund. Let's just go to the underlined sections here. In the underlined section, you'll notice it says the insurance company is in the best position to know what the policy limits are and must bear the responsibility of their own mistake. That goes back to a case law between Federal Mutual Insurance versus the Good Samaritan Hospital. They later learned that, oh, the policy benefits ran out. Maybe it has $1,000 and they paid $2,000. Whose fault is that? Was it our fault? We billed what we did. They paid more. What they should do is go to their patient to get it back. Now, why do they come to us? Because they assume, well, we're going to probably pay it back. No. If you're out of network, you're absolutely going to refuse it. Notice this case law dates back to 1974. It goes on further with another case that says, in the absence of fraud, a healthcare provider is not legally obligated to refund payments it receives from an insurer if the insurer subsequently determines that they were paid in error. And again, this goes back to, oh, there was benefits and there wasn't. When you're out of network, I'm going to tell you, you're always going to refuse this. The reason you are is because under case law, they can't force you to pay it. Now, if they paid you twice, you billed a certain one data service and they paid two, that's a different issue. And a true overpayment more than you billed is one thing. But this is something where they just go, oops, the benefits weren't there. They are in the best position to know that benefit, and they bear the responsibility. In other words, what they're really saying to you is, pay us back and you go chase the patient for the money. No, thank you. They're your insured. You go chase them. Now, out of network, this works. Push back on this. Don't be afraid. Notice that's why I brought up the one here that has the federal plan that shows it's a one-year statute. Even if you're in network, the statute of limitations apply. Now, here is the problem. This case law applies when you're out of network. When you're in network, it doesn't, because if you are in network, you signed a contract with them that says if they've made an overpayment, they can take it back. And I know many of you probably have realized, Sam, they already took the money. That's true. Often when you're in network, what do? They'll just recoup the money from a future payment, which they can because you're in network. If you're out of network, can they recoup it? No, they don't have any right to do that. So that's part of the reason they like us to be in network, because even if they make a mistake, we bear the responsibility. Notice everything kind of goes their way. But again, don't be afraid to push back. If you are in network, first of all, check to make sure what they're stating is correct. Did they really make an overpayment or not? But also look at the statute of limitations. Now you can see here I have for every state the statute. You'll notice in some areas it's 1 year, 36 months, 5 years. Know your state rules. If you're in a state where it's 1 year, even if you're in network, if they request the care after 1 year, it's paid? No. Now you're going to notice Connecticut is 5 years, so you got a long time, but most states are going to be relatively short, about a year, but some even shorter. Notice Georgia, 90 days. 180 days for South Carolina and Texas. So just know your state. Now at the very bottom, notice the bulk of states have no statute, which means, does it not apply? Well, I would go to the federal. Under federal, it's 1 year. I would push the same thing here. What I'm getting to is, don't feel forced or don't feel that you don't have any rights to push back on this. Number one, make sure what they paid, if they're stating it was incorrect, was actually incorrect. Often they make mistakes. Number two, are you in or out of network? And what if it was just a mistake on their end? Again, don't be afraid to push back. I think too often we are afraid of the insurance, and understand you have certain rights. When you're in network, you sign away a little bit of it. But when you're out of network, I'm always going to push back on this. Don't be afraid to refuse, and don't be afraid to push back if they come to you and say, we're going to put you in collections. Good. Have you ever put a patient in collections? What does collections mean? Collections, in my opinion, is writing you a nasty letter that says, we're really mad, you better pay us. Unless you're willing to go to court, it means nothing. And if you go to court, these case laws apply. And they know that. That's why I would send this information out. They have to bear the responsibility of their mistake. Now, what about beyond the statute or when you're out of network? Take a look. Here is an Aetna request. Notice it's the second request. And it says, as a result of a routine review of payments, we previously notified you that there were some differences between the amount paid and the amount which you should have been paid. Well, let's look at the highlighted part. Our records indicate the overpayment, as noted on the enclosed document, is not eligible to be offset from future payments. Why? Because you're out of network. Whose responsibility is it? It's theirs. So they go on to say, therefore, we must request that you issue a check or money order payable to us in the above amount. Well, why would I do that when I have no obligation to do so? Because here would be my question. How about I send to them, this is my request to just pay me in full, because what you're paying is a ripoff. I mean, isn't it interesting for healthcare in our country? Most people think doctors' bills are the reason healthcare costs are high. Completely untrue, and that includes medical providers. The healthcare cost in this country is drugs. Notice, Can you tell a doctor how much they're going to get paid? All the time. We all know that. You have a policy that says, look, we're going to pay this amount, take it or leave it. Can we do that with drug prices? We can't. So therefore, don't be afraid to understand that we're already getting a limited amount. How dare they come back and ask for this? So when they ask you for a voluntary payback, my answer is always, no, thank you. Know your rights. Don't be afraid to push back. If you're in network and it's within the statute of limitations, heck, they're probably going to recoup it. But if you're out of network, they're going to send you a few nasty letters. You could frankly ignore it or at least bring up the case law. Always know you have rights. You have ways to push back. Don't feel beholden to an insurance company. My goodness. In fact, chiropractors have always done that. We've never been completely dependent upon insurance. We like it, but it's not everything. So go out and understand that. Don't be afraid to push back. That's what we do at the H.J. Ross Company, along with ChiroSecure, is to make sure that you are protected. Are you taking away all the risk? Take a moment, go to our website, H.J. Ross Company. Notice we always update news here. What does Medicare Part C pay for? What about Part B? What is how to bill for an integrated practice? We update news items within our site on a constant basis. By example, where are you going to get your Medicare fees for next year? How about work comp? What's going to be the deductible? We're your resource. Take a look, H.J. Ross Company. And of course, we offer a service where I become part of your staff. Get an expert on your team. Go to the H.J. Ross Network. Take a look. For one simple price, you're going to get a few seminars as well as an expert that you can call, email, even Zoom with. I appreciate your time, everyone. We'll see you next time.